Many thanks for the introduction. Appreciate it. I also appreciate everybody online for this Agilent webinar. A big thank you to all the panelists who took the time to prepare this discussion and to connect today. The agenda is fairly simple. We'll speak about lab digitalization, so understand what it means. The title is From Paper to Pixels. We want to understand how you change from paper to pixel. To do that, we have 2 Agilent customers today. So they have chosen to go digital with the lab. So we'll try to understand the underlying reasons, hopefully the benefits, but also the challenges they faced. And we have a consultant, Elliot. We wanted to have an external and expert point of view to guide the discussion as well. I will give time to everybody to present their firm, but first I think we could have a quick tour of introduction of the panelists. I am myself Jörgen Bowman. I'm based in Switzerland and I've been working for Agilent for quite a while now. My role is called a Senior Product Marketing Manager, and I will be the moderator today. So I'll be guiding the questions, but most of the talks will be done by our expert panelists. The introduction tour will follow the sun, so I think I'll ask Thomas in Germany to start.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So my name is Thomas Schmidt. Hello. As Jean-Guillaume already mentioned, I'm located in Germany and I'm marketing director within the software and informatics division at Agilent. And I'm responsible for digital solutions. And before I have been responsible for the product management for the Open Lab portfolio.
Thank you, Thomas. Then Elliot in England.
Hi, yes, Elliot Randall. I'm a scientist by training, molecular biologist and biochemist. Some time ago, worked in biotech companies before working in several technology companies in the area of data management. And then set up a consultancy business, and now I'm Senior Vice President of Digital Transformation within the ProPharma Group. So good to meet you all.
Cheers, Elliot, appreciate it. Then the sun goes to Tony.
Good afternoon all. My name is Tony McKeown. I work for doTERRA Global at our European manufacturing headquarters in Cork, Ireland. I started with doTERRA almost 2 years ago, 2 years next month, as a LIMS administrator, previously having run my own business for 12 years. My background is in information technology. I graduated as an IT engineer from Munster Technological University.
Super, appreciate this. And Eric?
Hello, my name is Eric Kemp, and I am the CTO at Modern Canna here in Lakeland, Florida. I have been in the laboratory since about 2008. I've also had the privilege of running an IT consulting firm for about 4 years that specialized in helping labs with their current LIMS implementations. I joined Modern Canna in 2018 and served dual roles heading up IT and quality assurance until about April 2022 and fully transitioned into IT.
Super, thank you, Eric. And again, big thank you to the panelists. I do appreciate your presence today. We can get started with the discussion. I'd like to set the scene and sort of lay the groundwork and ask Thomas a quick question. So Thomas has been with us for quite a long time at Agilent, and I think he has accompanied a lot of labs during their transformation. And I'd like to understand a little bit your perspective on what lab digitalization means for you today.
Yes, okay, thank you, Jean-Guillaume. I think this is already a very loaded question. And I think everyone here in the panel could talk hours about this. So first of all, I think you hardly can go to a conference and have not digital lab in your conference presentation, right? And so it's a hot topic, but on the other hand, it is already a hot topic for 15 years, right? And I think we also have to discuss today why we have similar discussions today as we already had 15 years ago. Because digital lab initiatives and lab of the future initiatives are around for almost 20 years. And of course, there have been certain adoption barriers, also something we have to talk about here. But I think no lab manager should have the goal, I want a digital lab. I think the digital lab is almost an overused buzzword. because what we really want to achieve is the highest efficient lab we can get to. And the paradigms and the means of the digital lab might help us to get there. So, and of course, there are so many dimensions and facets of the digital lab. If you're on R&D, you have different approaches, different problems to solve compared to if you are in quality control. Your starting point is different, your flexibility is different. But let me find some common ground here. I think the two major paradigms of a digital laboratory, first is to achieve a high degree of automation. And the second one, this should be accompanied by what we really call a truly digital user experience. Having software across your lab in every corner does not mean that your lab is digital. And so I think there also has to be a very holistic approach. I think we also will discuss here how can we get from the current state to our desired end goal. I have seen a lot of projects which started very ambitiously with RFPs with 600 requirements, and then they failed because they were too ambitious. I think that a kind of organic approach is needed here. And I think also we have the different extremes for one lab type. Just to connect a balance to a chromatography data system might be a big achievement, whereas other lab types are striving towards a complete, what I would call black box lab. Here is the sample, and an hour later you have the result without any human intervention, with the means of taking advantage of robotics, artificial intelligence, and so forth. I think, first of all, we all know that the lab environment is very heterogeneous, right? You have a lot of different instrumentation, you have a lot of data types, data formats, the people, right? And also other aspects. And I think, first of all, it's very important to deal with this heterogeneity. I recently met a customer who introduced themselves with, I'm a lab manager in a QC lab. We have to analyze 500 products. We have 400 analytical methods. This is my colleague next door. He works in a completely different way. And I think everyone is very ambitious. And but it's really to come up with tools which are able to cover the heterogeneity and the diversity in the laboratory. And I think also we have to look about the adoption barriers, right? So because we all know that there is a digitalization journey, and but I think this must almost happen in parallel because you want to continue your business. And this is also another aspect. And yeah, then it's about data migration. And I think we also have to be very honest to ourselves. Also as a vendor, no one can do this alone. And I think we from Agilent, we have to and we want to be good lab citizens. And this is, for example, why we also have close relationships with other vendors in the industry to really be able to address the customer problems firsthand.
Right. Elliot, do you agree that we've been talking about it and we still don't have it?
Yeah, I think some companies have been more successful than others, and they fall into some of the attributes that Thomas described. I think we've called this from paper to pixels. There's a big step in between, and that is the change management that goes with that, and often coupled with the fact that it's important not just to automate the current paper process, but to an opportunity to do something better or different, right? So it doesn't always translate directly. In some cases, some things can be automated, so it's appropriate to do so, but often there's a change involved to make it more effective. I think when that change management's missing, or when the scope of the project is either too huge or arguably too small, that's where the problems have arisen. I think you used the word, Thomas, the holistic approach. I think that's absolutely key to this, not just taking digital projects in isolation. We've worked with clients or come across clients in the past who tell us that very proudly that they have tens or hundreds of different digitalization projects, and whether they talk to each other is a different matter necessarily. So yeah, one one broader holistic initiative with smaller steps underneath tends to be more effective when it's not done that way. I think that's one of the key causes for what you've seen over the last decade or so.
Right, and I think that the first message that we can hear today is having software is a good thing. Maybe not having too many, and hopefully have them communicate together is something that one can hope to achieve. With that, very good. I'd like to have the first presentation of one of our customer, Tony, if that's okay with you, to describe a little bit what you do at doTERRA, and especially within your lab.
Yeah, I'm delighted to. Well, doTERRA, which means the gift from the earth, was founded in 2008. It sources, tests, manufactures, and distributes pure essential oils and natural home care products. We currently ship to around 86 countries worldwide and counting. Here in our European manufacturing headquarters, our lab's function is to ensure all doTERRA products meet a CPTG standard for safety, purity, and quality. We do this by performing a wide range of analytical chemistry testing, physical chemistry testing, microbial screening on all our products. So we have currently a chemistry lab and a microbiology lab. The chemistry lab currently performs 8 different tests. The microbiology lab would perform 7 different micro tests. So that's where we're at. We roughly have about a team of 10 in our quality control team. And I'll go on further in a minute and discuss our journey to digitalization. We're at the start of the project. I suppose, would you like me to continue on that, or will I?
Yeah, that's a that was my next question, to understand what you've undertaken for digitalization.
Yeah. So up to 12 weeks ago, our only digitalization within the lab was using Agilent's Open Lab ECM. But when I started here, going back 23 months, my role was to bring a LIMS system into doTERRA in Cork. We looked at bringing an existing system that was in our headquarters in the US here and extending it, expanding it to Ireland. But we also went to the market and looked at different products. So after a number of months of testing, and with yourself, Jean, you demoed Slims for us, we decided that we were going to go with Agilent Slims. And as a result, a project team was formed between Agilent and ourselves, a team that has worked very successful over the last number of months. And up the 12th of May, we launched Slims here. Again, taking from what Thomas was speaking about earlier, we're doing this organically. We've put in phase 1, which eliminates paper from our workflows within the labs. But we have phase 2 and phase 3 to come. Phase 2 will be more integration with instruments and things like that. We felt we didn't need to jump that quick. We wanted a system, because people were going from paper to pixels, and we wanted a system that people could organically get to know, and we can add as we're going along. So that's where we're at the moment, Jean. Okay, that's really good to hear. And do you have any benefits already from going from paper to pixels? Like our main aim was to automate a lot of processes within the labs. Obviously, time and costs we needed to reduce. So you can imagine going from writing out every result for every test. It's very time consuming. We also wanted to improve data integrity and security, eliminate human error. When you're using a lot of paperwork, it's very easy to have human error. And we also wanted something that was going to help us with our lab demands as well as our production demands. So within the space of 12 weeks, we noticed that we're saving 40 hours plus a week in the lab from going from paper to digital. This has allowed us to increase testing which we probably would not have been able to do the level of testing we're doing now prior to the introduction of SLIMs.
Right.
But it also has allowed us to manage the demand for the lab, as well as feeding down to the demand for the production. So that 40 hours a week has been extremely beneficial to us, you know. So, and it's impressive in that short space of time in phase one.
No, this is we're very glad to hear that. This is impressive numbers. And another question I had, and this is also based on what Elliot mentioned, you know, this is very good benefits, but I guess you also faced some challenges, maybe user adoption that Elliot mentioned.
Yeah, well, I suppose like the main challenges was trying to get people thinking electronically rather than paper based. Right. You know, it's we have a great team here, but you know, when you're used to something, writing down something, it doesn't always translate. Similar to what Thomas was talking about earlier, it doesn't translate directly electronically, and we tried to build the workflows with the team from Agilent as best as we could, but obviously it can't be identical.
Of course.
But as regards the biggest challenge now is my persuasion to get this expanded to other territories worldwide, because I see this as a major benefit. It's a system that's very configurable, easy to use, you know. So I see the benefit of expanding into other territories.
Turning to Elliot, so you've heard doTERRA have eliminated paper. They have earned 40 hours a week. Is that a very, you know, great success story within digital lab, or how often do you see such stories?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that Tony mentioned there, I think you described it in terms of extra capacity rather than efficiency, right? So obviously efficiency is sometimes how these things are measured, but you've got to actually do something with the time saved. You know, it's no good just doing something faster and then going home earlier or something like that. Or maybe that is a side benefit perhaps, but you know, it is those capacity increases that are important specifically in testing labs. I think the other thing that maybe you're not seeing yet because or maybe we haven't talked about yet because it's early days, but I think when things are automated to the degree that you just described, it's more trust in the data, right? There's less manual errors, less manual entry, and people start to trust that data to use it for other things. So that's often a bigger benefit that we see over the line, is the reuse of data, the being able to do something that's maybe even fundamentally not possible in the previous way of working. Again, maybe the capacity is used better or the extra capacity is used to spend time understanding what you're seeing trends, trying to optimize and improve. So there's various things like that. But as you say, you're only a short period in, maybe that comes a little bit later. But that, you know, the automation, the data integrity, the trust in data, being able to do more with it, usually are those slightly later ones, and tend to actually override quite significantly any kind of time-saving, efficiency-saving type of benefits. But it takes a little while to realise them, and they're quite hard to quantify when you're putting your business case together at the start as well.
Agreed. Very quick one for Thomas. So you've heard it. I think it's a very good case already, but do you have any recommendation to go even better than that?
So I think the outcome of doTERRA, what they achieved during the last months, is very impressive. And I think this is what I mentioned before, really the goal of this whole digitalization journey. So this is how it should be. What I also very much like is this organic approach. And so I assume that a lot of workflows have not been pixelized, digitized. But I think it's very important to learn as you go, with the possibility also to iterate. And I think really, and perhaps it's also what we can discuss later. And you asked the question before, why we are where we are. I think where the rubber really hits the road is to digitalize the now paper-based workflows, right? So we have LIMS in the lab, we have CDS, we have data management systems, but there is a reason why it's so difficult to convert specifically when you are in a regulated environment to convert this paper-based analytical methods. Because here I like to question a little bit about from paper to pixel. It's not about paper on glass, right? I think the art is really to be able to also cover the business aspect. And this includes not only automation aspects like the integration with the small lab devices, with the data systems, sometimes even with the business systems like SAP, but also aspects like, for example, review by exception, right? So one of the paradigms of a digital lab is prevent errors and not detect errors in hindsight. No, I think this is a great starting point. And I think for me, it would be interesting to understand, Elliot, if you see doTERRA ahead of the curve, because I recently talked to some customers and I told them, well, you know that the pressure is increasing, specifically in regulated environments from the FDA, from PICS, from the WHO. In 3 to 5 years, when you get your next audit and you are still on a hybrid system, you must have a very good answer. And the response was, no, we don't have to wait 3 to 5 years. It's already there, right? So where do you see the ratio of labs which are still, for whatever good reasons, procrastinating compared to labs which are really on their digitalization journey?
Yeah, I think it's a topic with most companies we work with and talk to, but how far they get or what they're doing about it can be very different. As you say, having different systems in place and all these different things you just described is one thing, but getting rid of the paper is perhaps another. So entering the LIMS, but still having somebody write something down, which they then enter into an electronic system afterwards. That seems one of the harder habits to break, and it definitely takes time. I think some of these drivers, you're saying, the sort of audit type of approach, well, maybe that talks more to the degree of a QC lab or a manufacturing environment, but I definitely see a lot of companies trying to bring those principles earlier on in the process. They realize that, for example, data generated by a research group may well be used in some kind of regulatory submission 10 years down the line, but you don't know that, but you have to plan for it. You have to record and capture information as though it may be used in that way in the future. And I think that's taken quite a long time for people to get around to. The thinking has always been, data integrity is a GMP concept. Well, actually, it's not. It's a general good practice. Who wouldn't want data unintegrity if we flip it totally on its head? So these kind of thinking is yes, definitely ahead of many companies who maybe think of digitalization in silos, and equally compared to those that would work as a big bang type of approach, taking that iterative approach, taking a platform and growing it, I think is a common attribute of the more successful transformation projects we're involved in.
Yeah, we also see this as a kind of second driver besides the compliance pressure. It's what we call time to result for contract labs, or time to market, right? And I think we see more in the manufacturing area, QC area, digitalization related to actually workflow, whereas in the time to market aspect, it's really more about the data, right? So, for example, fail early, these kind of things. Would you agree with this assessment?
Yeah, but although I think both are important to relative degrees, right? So it's not a black and white thing. The data is important for everybody across that value chain, and likewise the process. I think if you talk with later stages, manufacturing, testing labs, as you say, there's a clearer process, but everybody has one. Even a research lab has a process. They just don't necessarily think in those terms. So yeah, both important, but to relative degrees as you move through, I think.
Yeah. So what would you regard as best practice to approach such a digitalization?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we've already touched upon. I think understanding properly the processes that people work today and looking for opportunities to make them better, or optimize to some degree. And I think all digitalization projects are driven to some degree, as we just touched upon, by the data. So understanding flows of data through an organization. Where are the bottlenecks? Who relies on your data? Right? People don't necessarily think that way. I produce a test result. It gets used for its original purpose. What about using data beyond its original purpose? What about somebody from a group 2 steps removed who would benefit from this information, but you don't necessarily know it? You don't know who the end consumers always are of the information you generate. It comes back to that holistic view, just looking at who relies on who, even several steps away from the original generation of the information.
Yeah. I think you already mentioned before project management. What we see very often, that of course companies acknowledge that they have to do something, right? To stay competitive, to stay compliant. And very often we see these projects that these are, let's say, put on top of the day-to-day work of a lab manager. Do you see this very often, and would you regard this as a most sustainable approach? I think this is almost a loaded question.
Yeah, very loaded, but very correct, right? So you can't do these kind of things as a side project here and there, 15 minutes as a side job. Most people are busy most of the time anyway, and people need to be given the time for these kind of projects. It needs to be part of their goals for the year, if it's that way. It's also important to start forming teams around digitalization projects as well, sort of a task force, if you will, depending on the degree of change that's being looked at. But yeah, absolutely, it needs dedicated time. That doesn't mean people can't do it as well as their lab job or whatever other role they have in the organization, but definitely not. Otherwise, it gets treated as a kind of hobby type of thing and soon goes out the window as soon as there's lots more samples to test or a lot more projects to work on.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Did appreciate that that conversation. Maybe we could turn now to Eric and hear from him a little bit about Modern Canna. And I'm also interested in what you do in your lab on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd give you some background. Modern Canna is a proud pioneer in Florida's medical marijuana industry. Our journey began as the first lab in the state to test medical marijuana, and we were deeply involved with shaping the rules and regulations. With more than 5 decades of experience, we've led commercial testing labs in various, highly regulated fields, including phosphate, petroleum, and environmental industries. And so in 2014, Modern Canna was founded with a clear mission in mind to serve the cannabis operators who cultivate and produce cannabis products, and to provide Florida's medical marijuana patients with the most advanced, accurate, and reliable cannabis testing services. Today, we've grown to become one of the largest cannabis labs in the country, boasting an impressive square footage and state-of-the-art instrumentation. And we're committed to ensuring quality every step of the way. And to your question, we've done a lot, or we think we have, but we've only just begun. That's the reality of it. And it feels good when, you put a vision out there and it starts working how you intended. It also feels good when you put it out there and say, wow, this doesn't work at all. And you go back and you rework it. So, that's just part of the journey. And, some of the things, really the reasons that we've done it, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead or not, but like for us, the digital transformation is absolutely essential for our growth and efficiency. Traditional methods just in brute force, they don't scale well. And it makes this an absolute necessity. And we're really happy that we're finally at a stage in our growth where we're able to dedicate the time to this and really just start parsing out what needs to be done. to really help us. And we do everything this way. I mean, we're a little, I guess, neurotic or crazy about things where we take our time with things. We don't rush where we are not forced to. And all of this is for the goal of scale. So
Right.
there is absolutely zero doubt in my mind that we could have just, oh, let's open another laboratory in another state. No, we have problems, that we have solved. We have solved a lot of them that make it adds to this confidence of like, yeah, since, the back house is handled in a, it's more robust. There's a million reasons to go that direction, but those are the main driving principles for us.
So I think we all like the sound of that. And the next question would be, what kind of solutions have you adopted already for digitalization?
Well, to name a few, well, I guess we could start with Agilent Smart Alerts has actually helped us tremendously. We've been using it, I think, 2 years, somewhere in there now, and it being able to know if a sequence faults or our turnaround times are insane, and we average about 2.3 days turnaround time on a full compliance suite. And we can get into that later if you want, but it's intense. It's a lot. And Smart Alerts has really helped us. Our analysts get a notification, say, oh, the run stopped, the vial was missing, this and that. And there's all this, traceability that ensures that we're meeting these crazy turnaround times with, at the same time meeting around quality standards.
Right.
So some other, interesting things that we've done, we've built out analyst pods. Our lab is very loud, and getting the analyst out of there, having, lots of screen real estate to, process their data, check on, just do their normal day-to-day, has really helped tremendously. And the other side of that is we've reduced the physical footprint at the bench in the main lab, having headless and tailless systems where you don't need to be there. You can just take a tablet and go load the instrument. All you need to do maintenance, take the tablet, do your thing, and go back to your desk. So that has really, really helped a lot. And the most exciting things that we are doing nowadays is, addressing inefficiencies in our current LIMS system. So, and a lot of these, you can take it from, just reporting tooling of like file management, cloud uploads, different, client-specific integrations that are required of us, or we help promote because it's better for everybody. Extending bench level stuff. So trying to remove the paper as best as you can when you can. And, that'll always be an ongoing journey. And
I'm sure.
I guess to a point, as our testing scope is pretty rigid, like, that's not really going to change too much. So I am pretty confident, in a year, 2 years, whatever the time frame is, that we could eliminate the paper trail for this suite of analyses. So I'm very happy about that. A lot of the other things that we've done, it's mainly to empower our staff to make better decisions by having access to information that was previously not in front of them. Or why don't you? Oh, you don't know that. Oh, it's in this menu 10 menus deep, and it's not good for anybody. So, that's in a nutshell what we've been doing over here.
So you raised a few important aspects. So if it's okay, I would like to ask a few questions. So first of all, you mentioned you have a digital vision. Can you elaborate a little bit on this? If you would have no boundary conditions, what is your perfect digital lab?
Time, infinite time, 48-hour days. I don't know. The perfect vision, I would love to get rid of the paper, but what the paper does is it enforces control of the process, and you have a record that isn't going to get lost unless someone does something ridiculous or it gets, so as far as let's just say balance automation, you need an interface to track the changes. Otherwise, what happens if why did you reweigh that sample? Or just things could happen that any of these systems that you build, you have to address, audit trails, all of these things, so that the destruction of records is never compromised or lost. And so my vision is having enough time and, infrastructure building up, which, we've already had, we have it in place and we're building more, and it's a very high priority for us, and it's very exciting. But to really just have the time to look at a system with the analysts, with whoever it is, everybody in the laboratory, really. And so sorry, you mentioned about user adoption, and this is one of the approaches that we're taking with this, is we're sitting down with the analysts, because I'm not there anymore. I don't do the work. I know the back end of it, or the reporting systems, and how the data gets made and all this great stuff. But the details of this, what actually trips people up or slows people down or makes it inefficient, are unknown until you go and you witness and you sit down with the process and you say, how can we help you? What will make this better? What could make this better? And the approach that we're taking is we implement and design something, or design and implement something that can help them immediately as a foundation, and then start extending their tooling out where our LIMS has failed, or just wasn't, or it's 15 years old, or whatever the reason is. It's just not for today's world.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect, because you're mentioning paper. I mean, let's be honest, for us, as a provider of digital solutions, our biggest competitor is the convenience of paper, right? It's very easy to carry a sheet of paper around in the laboratory. Of course, what we would like to avoid is that instead of paper, you have to carry a laptop around. And so we talked about the digital user experience, right? And of course, you have a lot of software packages with a lot of functionality. And we, of course, try to hide this functionality. I think this is what user experience is about. But the other aspect is, of course, that you need this information available where you need it. And perhaps also a question to Eric and also to Anthony. What is your take on kind of mobile devices in the laboratory, right? Is it about, I don't know, you're using iPads or other tablets, or do you think about bring your own mobile phone? How do you think to resolve this, see the data and instructions where you actually need them?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Eric.
All right. I am totally for this. I mean, our modern world revolves around a web browser, and realistically, the future of anything that we're doing, the easiest way to get it connected is use the web browser. And there are so many tools available and to achieve those goals. And we're moving from those legacy interfaces to more of a web-based approach, so that anybody could pull out their phone and then just log into that extension of the system to do their thing. And for us to our email and everything, we're a Google Workspace shop here, at least that part of it. But that comes with Google Docs, Google Sheets, all of these things, and there's all of these wonderful APIs that you could just tap into, and most of them are free. And all you have to do is dedicate the time and resources to it. So yeah.
Tony?
Yeah, from a hardware point of view, my preference will be static devices within the labs. I've noticed now, since we've gone SLIMs, laptops in out of the labs, probably not the best idea for a micro lab. So we looking at putting in static devices, whether it be wall-mounted devices that at each instrument, at locations around the labs, that it makes it easier. And as Eric has already alluded to, we use 365. All our information is there. It's on a browser, so it's very, very easily accessible. But my preference for laboratories would be, and it's something that we're pricing now at this stage, is to have static devices within the lab rather than mobile. I just don't like that concept of bringing mobile in and out of the lab, especially when you're testing for microbes, things like that. You know.
Very good. No, appreciated that. Thank you, Eric, for the presentation. That I think we now have a very good insight on Modern Canna. I'd like to open the second discussion. We've heard from all the panelists about the current trends, current solutions that already give pretty good results. But I think we also need to speak about the future. There will be new solutions. There will be new trends. There's one that I need to talk about, and this is called AI. So I'll ask Eliot if you have any ideas of what's next and upcoming solutions, and what is your perspective on AI?
Yeah, I think you just beat me to that, because I was going to say there's the one topic we haven't mentioned yet, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, in that digital transformation type of projects tend to be grounded, as we said, in the data, as well as some of the other aspects we talked about. And then that suddenly gets turned into, AI initiatives, and we come across a lot of organizations who have AI initiatives or want to do AI, but not necessarily a goal of what to do with it. It's just because it's the trendy thing to do. There are some, again, taking that small steps, lots of pragmatic things that can be done with these kind of advanced computational techniques. But the one thing that is, I suppose, common to all of them is that you still need good quality data for them to work. You can't assume the old, there's a very old adage of garbage in, garbage out when it comes to computers. That's not gone away, right? There's no sort of some reason that AI suddenly magically gets rid of that. So having this quality data that can be understood by a computer is key. Eric, you talked about making data accessible to people. I think that's a wider concept, and it's one hand in hand with data related projects. We see a big emphasis on the FAIR principles, so making data findable, accessible, to your point, the accessible bit, interoperable and reusable. Again, to me, they're just sensible mantras, right? You don't want data that you can't find, that isn't accessible. And you just turn it on its head and you think, well, who would want that? Who would want the opposite? But having this principles in place is really a prerequisite to doing anything smart with your data or using these smart techniques. So yes, lots of opportunity, lots of great things being done. People talking about chat GPT for the lab, these kind of ideas. And I think they're all great and really good visions to have. But I say these foundational steps need to be put in place. You can't do it without the data being right, and also if we extend the analogy a little bit, the plumbing for the foundations to be in place too. So without those being dust, you'll never do anything smart down the end. So those are absolute foundational steps to get right first.
Right. Eric, we spoke together the other day, and I think you had a nice anecdote or an adoption of a potential AI in your lab, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Realistically, I mean, we are already using AI. Mostly, you could call it in a pair programmer fashion, but the extension of that is really, really exciting. Where, I don't personally think that, at least anytime soon, that AI we're gonna have it make laboratory decisions. We only have we produce one thing here at a laboratory, and it's data. And if that's wrong, that's not good. And there goes your reputation and the whole exercise of this. And however, AI is really, really, really good at other things, that you can have it produce a more distilled set of choices to, any decision maker within your organization. And so some examples of that, it's the predictive analysis of things, of predictive maintenance. You could feed it tune reports, all of this data that you could aggregate, connect up, and say, is that, as an analyst, you go, oh yeah, this is going to happen soon, or I need to clean the source, blah blah blah. But there's probably some stuff buried in there that you could, that's going to go out in 3 months, and it might be right, might be wrong, but these things just get better at time, and they're scary good at these things. So other things, predictive ordering, the list goes on. But yeah, no decisions for me yet. Final decisions, at least.
I think suggesting and informing is suggesting and informing decisions, not making decisions, is where it's optimal right now, I would say.
I agree. I was about to ask Tony, do you guys consider as well AI?
Well, I suppose I come to AI from a couple of perspectives. From an IT perspective, yes, great. It can analyze data faster, predict better accuracy within data. But with the proviso, as Elliot has already said, that the input is correct to get the output. From a social aspect of AI, there are benefits and failings within it. I suppose one of them, we say from a lab perspective, from a risk benefit. If you had robots who were able to do the work, there's a lot less risk within the lab. But the other side of that is, from a social point of view, people losing their jobs, humans not being required for within. Yes, you'll have a high level interaction with the AI from the people that are feeding the information, but what happens to the analyst that's currently working in the lab? So yeah, look, I'm not there yet with AI. I don't like a lot of the things that are in social media at the moment, and it's putting a negative perspective on a lot of it. But I think I'm just not there yet. I think a couple more years of development on it might persuade me that AI is the way to go.
Okay, time will.
Yeah, I can go first. So augmented, AR, for me, what I see its place in, in the very near future is, say we open another laboratory in another state. Well, most of the, everything's at headquarters, all of your people, everything like that, until, everything starts branching out. But say like training or how to do instrument maintenance at a great distance. Things like that are really, really exciting for me. I definitely see that in our future.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Eric. For certain aspects, I think it will be extremely beneficial. Again, I'm hesitant to go the full hog with it. I still think we need the human interaction, and I think to jump, as Thomas is, to jump from paper to AI is an extraordinary leap. Especially, no, I think there has to be a middle ground. Yes, you can introduce a certain amount, as Eric has explained, but to go from one to the other, I see is impossible, really, to be honest with you.
Elliot, do you have a point of view?
And just to echo some of the comments already, that this sort of idea of training or guidance seems to be a really logical first application of this kind of technology, especially quick turnarounds for things. So if you're saying geographical distances, if there's some expert who's able to help with a remote fix rather than a remote doing of a full job, there may be some maintenance that needs doing, there may be some small thing that's very hard to write down or hard to describe or hard to do in a video that could be supported really well through that kind of approach. So yes, seen that work very well, specifically in that training and guidance type of area.
Agreed. We've been very, very good with the time. I can also remind everybody who is listening in that you can ask questions to any of the panelists. There's a dedicated panel where you can ask your questions to any of us, and we'll be happy to answer those right after. I'll make a quick summary of all the things that I've heard, and again, I think that was a great discussion. I was also happy that we don't agree on everything. That means there's plenty of things to discuss. But if we speak about the digital lab, I think we all think of something completely automatic with a great user experience, holistic, and trying to prevent errors rather than treating the errors. There are some challenges. There's the adoption format of the data. People, and I don't say that in the negative way, but that for every change, there's usually a pain associated to it, and I'm the first one to undergo that. There are some interesting trends, collaboration. Thomas mentioned that there's no such a thing as one vendor capable of doing everything. I think people have to team up and collaborate even within the labs, which is, if you ask me, a very good thing. And as regards the future, there will be things, there will be AI, but Elliot mentioned that very well. I think you need quality data. You need accessible data, and there will be also robotic. That's something Tony mentioned, and I agree with all of that. So my final word is, can you go from paper to pixel? The answer is yes, but is it easy? Probably not. That is something you may want to consider today. I think there's a boat which is departing at the moment. Very exciting boat as far as I'm concerned. Up to you if you have anything else. Otherwise, we go to Q&A session.